Sorry, ma'am, but it says here you live abroad? Duh, but I was back now, and I didn't have time for this. I made quite a scene.
Nirok sent me, I've been texting the wrong person for 10 years. Sounds kind of interesting. Fire emoji. That is lit. Texting the wrong person for 10 years? Is this my story animated? Why, yes it is. Dude, why does this old man look so evil? I've been waiting 10 years to unveil my secret plan. It was me all along. I'm about to get prepared for the most amazing episode of Catfish ever. Well, you know, I can say, let's hope that this animation is the same quality as the last animation we reacted to. If you guys missed last episode of us reacting to my story, God! Ow! Oh God, that hurt. That is not what I reacted to, but that did hurt a lot. Ow. I punched my table out of anger. We reacted to I Know Everyone's Dirty Secrets. You guys can go check that video out too, because it's so freaking hilarious, the animations.
I finished my exams.
Let's do this.
When I moved away from home, I promised my family it would just be for 1 year. Then I'd be back. Pretty soon though, 1 year turned into 10 years. And I think my family gave up all hope that I'd ever return.
Are you an adult? I mean, because usually when you leave home, that's kind of normal for you to never ever come back. So you can, depending on the circumstances, but like, I don't know.
Obviously, we grew apart during that time, but I still sent them half my salary every single month. And we spoke on the phone when we could.
I mean, they probably didn't care at all. They're like, shoot, she sent us a bunch of money.
Usually they'd send me excited voices notes when they received my money. But a few months passed where I didn't hear a peep from them. Just the occasional thumbs up emoji. I started to get worried.
That's the that's the person they're texting that's wrong. Have you been sending that old weird man your money, you idiot? Oh, I'm so excited to see what's gonna happen.
And decided to fly home and surprise them. It was long overdue. You see, I'd been working
10 years?
as a maid for a super rich family, and not once had they let me take a holiday. I lied and told them that my dad was sick and that I needed to rush home. For all I knew, that could even be true. I expected them to tell me to go straight away, but instead they told me I couldn't leave, and that if I dared to, they'd fire me. So I got fired. They gave me 1 hour to pack up all my stuff, say bye to the kids, and get out. I couldn't believe it.
10 years of spectacular service, and she's fired for missing a day. I think you can sue. I don't really know. But like, that's so messed up, man. I feel right now, I'm crying tears because I feel sorry for this girl. I better hydrate. We're only a minute in the video and I just feel like so much doesn't add up. Why did she have to send all that money? Why did they expect her to come back? She has a great paying job. Sure, her bosses are absolutely awful, but like, she's got a good paying job, you know, just so many questions, but hey, you know, whatever.
After everything I'd done for them, well, now I was even more excited to get home to my family, who loved me dearly. I used up the last of my savings to buy the plane ticket, but I knew once I got home I could live with my parents and they would take care of me.
If they're still there.
I'd taken care of them for all these years.
Oh yeah,
Except
let's hope
when
so.
the taxi pulled up outside my parents' address, something didn't seem right. My dad loved gardening, but the garden looked like a wreck.
Looked
Panic
awful.
shot through my body. Something must have happened to him. I ignored the mess and rushed to the front door and started knocking. I knew no one was in because the house was in darkness. I decided to just try the door in the hope that it would open, and wow, it actually was. I walked right in, and I'm not joking, it smelled like someone had died in there. I covered my nose and
well, let's hope it's not her parents.
and ran into the other 2 rooms in the house, but the place was deserted. Then I heard a shuffling sound, and my heart froze. My parents were still here after all. I turned around and said, "Surprise! I'm home!"
She heard a shuffling noise. Guys, I'm back there doing this.
Except instead of seeing my parents standing there,
Who are
I
you?
was face to face with a huge, hairy guy, and he looked more shocked than me. I screamed and asked
"What are you doing
he was
in my
doing in my
home?"
house. And before I could say anything more, he started running. "Hey, I'll call the police!" I screamed. And that got
he's
him.
a squatter.
He stopped running and came back up the path.
You're gonna call the police now, right? Okay, we're gonna play it like this. He pulls out his phone. I have all the receipts. You've been texting me this entire time. You didn't even know it, stupid.
Then he laughed and said, "Ain't nobody lived here in months, sweetie. I moved in when I saw the place was deserted. Finders keepers, right?" I couldn't believe it.
I
Where
guess
were my
that-
parents?
Sure. Sure.
I had a really bad feeling.
It's been 10 years, girl. And for some reason, you had zero contact with them. It's kind of weird. They probably just took your money and ran off and bought probably a mansion, depending how well your paying job was, because you were literally giving them half of your check. Like, that's so stupid. Sure, you love your parents, but you need to live too. Where did she live? So many questions.
Had they just abandoned me? I looked around the room and noticed there were some envelopes lying on the table. They had my handwriting on them.
They left. Oh.
They were empty. The guy saw me looking at them and said someone had been sending money to the house.
Oh, he did take it.
Them. This couldn't be happening.
He's like, this has been great.
Police. My parents could be in danger, or worse, they could be dead. The
music.
guy said he had to go run an errand.
That's the first time I've seen some music or heard some music.
And I don't know why, but I decided to look around just to make sure my parents weren't tied up somewhere. Clearly, I'd been watching too many horror movies. The place was filthy, but seeing as I'd spent the last 10 years as a maid, I got to work and started cleaning the place. Hours later, the guy came back, and as soon as he was inside, I asked him what he knew. He said he'd never even seen my parents, and that this place had been empty when he moved in. I didn't believe him at all. He looked scared and pulled out his phone to call the police.
But he's got a phone.
That's my dad's phone, I shouted at him.
Hey, are you sure you didn't murder my parents? No. He has like a suit on, her dad's suit. It's even got like his name on it. It's just crossed out. But that's my dad's phone and my dad's toothbrush. What the heck? No, I wasn't me. I didn't do anything.
Then he looked at me and said, well, it was here when I moved in, so I just sort of claimed it. But I didn't understand. Why had he been replying to me then? I asked him about the thumbs up emojis, and he said he was just being polite. And then he said, oh, so you're Anna then. Thanks for the money, doll. You've been a real help. We call you Anna the Angel around here. Very sweet of you.
Oh, you just being polite. No, he loves that sweet money. Like, come on. Anna's a sucker. Anna the Angel, Anna the sucker.
This was too much. I tried calling my mom's number, and suddenly I heard a phone ringing. Oh, I didn't think Margot was here, the hairy guy said. Then he dug around in a sleeping bag and pulled out my mom's phone. I gave up. I'd just have to go to the police. I was too scared to call them in front of this guy, so I told him I'd go try to find my parents and I'd pop back around soon. I ran out of there with my suitcase, and then I called the police, who said they'd be right over. I decided I'd go speak to the neighbors in the meantime, see if anyone remembered me and could tell me anything about my parents. But there was no one around. In fact, it looked like a ghost street. Had everyone just moved out? I remembered my parents had mentioned they might move because there were rumors all the houses here were going to be torn down. Well, maybe that was what had happened.
Why? Why are the houses going to be torn down? That's a pretty big freaking deal. Do they own these houses? You can't just tear someone's house down without your permission, right? And also, it's 10 years. Like, the probability of someone moving away in 10 years is pretty good. Pretty good. But why did the phone stay there? That's the question. That's why I think they've been murdered. But I don't really know.
Maybe they just moved? The police arrived 30 minutes later, and they went into the house to have a word with the hairy guy. After a while, they came back out and said this whole neighborhood was due to be torn down any week now, so those squatters could do whatever they liked. But it's my house, I said. The policeman looked bored and said I could come down to the station and file a proper report. The whole time I was freaking out, though. Why wouldn't my parents tell me if they moved?
And why is their cell phone still activated? They just left them there, and that's it? They just left them there, and the bill somehow always got paid, and they still had service. The freaking hobo guy is like, yeah, I got 5G. It's freaking sweet, dude. And then the mail didn't get forwarded to another address. Like, just so much doesn't add up, okay? This isn't life. This is not how life works.
This made no sense. When we got to the station, I told them
my name.
They typed something into their computer and looked up at me, confused. Sorry, ma'am, but it says here you live abroad? Duh, but I was back now, and I didn't have time for this.
He doesn't know that. You don't have to be so freaking sassy towards the poor policeman. Oh, missing. Who's missing?
I asked them to at least help me find my parents, and when I gave their names, they said they'd left the country a couple of months ago, and therefore they couldn't help me. I made quite a scene. And eventually, they asked me to leave, or they'd have to call the chief police officer.
Like it's gonna help?
I'd been gone so long, I didn't know what to do. My parents could be anywhere by now. And why hadn't they told me they were going traveling? I felt kind of annoyed. They should have been using the money I sent to look after the house, not go traveling. No wonder the house looked horrible. I walked the streets for a bit before finding a little cafe. I was starving and exhausted, so I flopped into a seat by the window and just ordered coffee after coffee while I tried to figure out what to do.
She drank coffee after coffee. She never stopped drinking coffee. And then she became coffee. True story.
Eventually, the manager came over to me and said they were closing soon. I drank up and was getting ready to leave when I heard someone screaming. I looked outside and there was an old woman by the window staring and pointing at me. I quickly went out to see if she was okay, and she started praying and shaking her head. The ghost of Anna is here. Oh, Lord, why? She kept muttering to herself over and over again. And then I recognized her. It was my grandma's best friend.
What the heck? This is like in a horror movie. Is her parents dead? I'm thinking, I'm gonna really take a guess, right? That her parents are definitely dead. That's why she's a ghost. She thought, that old lady probably assumed that they died together. That's it.
My grandma had died when I was little, so we'd lost touch with her over the years. I tried to calm her down and told her I wasn't a ghost, that I was alive, and I needed her help. We found a nearby bench, and she was honestly shaking. I told her I'd been living abroad and had just come home because I hadn't heard from my parents in ages. She then told me that she'd seen my parents about 2 months ago, and they'd been hysterical, saying I'd died. So they'd left to go and collect my body. She said no one had seen or heard from them since, but that there had been a rumor going around that they'd decided to stay abroad because they were too sad to come home without me.
They moved in next door to where she lived, and she went. That would suck.
This was crazy. I was clearly alive. Why would my parents think I'm
not dead?
But why did they think I was dead when I was messaging them this whole time? I asked her. And the old lady looked at me and said, your boss sent a letter to them saying that there had been some kind of accident and you sadly passed away.
Why?
No. Why would my boss do that? I mean, he didn't treat me that well, but he wasn't cruel. I didn't get it. I needed to call my boss and ask him about this. He didn't pick up, though. I tried dozens of times, but he just ignored me. What did I expect?
What? What is the motive? Why would the boss want to do this? Was she that good of a worker, huh? So many questions.
He'd fired me. Suddenly, things started to make more sense. The way my boss had been so quick to fire me and told me not to bother coming back. Why had I let him treat me like that?
Because you're dead.
But to tell my parents I died? That was too much. He could go to prison for this. I left the old lady and ran back to the police station. I told them the whole story, and then I gave them my boss's number and asked if they could call him to see if my parents had been in touch with him. They could see I was getting frantic, and finally they started to take me seriously.
Calm down! Calm down, it's okay.
And then I gave them my number and hurried back to my parents' house. I wanted to ask the hairy guy some more questions.
Hairy guy? He's got a name. His name's Harry.
As I ran home, I couldn't stop thinking about my boss. How could he do this? My poor parents.
Him and his stupid pants.
From a distance, I noticed the hairy guy was sitting outside with a woman who I assumed was Margot.
This is so epic music.
It was dark by then, so I managed to walk along without being seen. They were chatting quite loudly, and what they said shook me to my core. To be honest, I ain't sure she believed what I was saying about us being squatters. What if she figures out her parents left the country because they thought she died? We need to get on the run again.
How does he know?
We can try our luck again in the next town. Then Margot laughed and said, I can't believe they fell for it. It was too easy, wasn't it? Let's just pack up quickly and get out of here before the police get onto us. I couldn't believe it.
Let's conveniently sit outside and loudly tell all of our devious plans. Those stupid idiots! They'll never figure out that we, us two squatters, are squatting in this house illegally. And that if we were ever to get caught, that would be the end of us. But thank God they didn't know. They're so stupid. In fact, I am so confident that we won't get found out that I will even talk louder.
So they'd done this, not my boss. They were criminals. Why would they do this?
Too much.
I was too scared to confront them, so I quickly called the police and asked them to come to my parents' address. They arrived just in time.
Hurry, get
the
Harry!
Harry guy and Margot were almost all packed up and were heading out to an old beat-up car, which I recognized as my dad's old car. Of course. Well, they didn't make it any further than the garden path before the police arrested them. They'd called my old boss, and of course, he'd known nothing about this.
He finally answered!
Hadn't seen my parents. I needed to find them. But before that, I got to watch the police arrest the Harry guy and that Margot woman. They kept shouting at me, but I just stood there, grinning. I hope they got locked up for the rest of their lives. I wanted to beat myself up over the fact that I left to surprise my parents. But at the same time, Thank God I did, because otherwise, who knows what those criminals would have done next. As it turns out, my parents weren't their first victims. They'd done this to 3 other families.
Oh,
well,
terrible.
I'd put an end to that. And it didn't take long to track down my parents. Once the police here alerted the police over there, they managed...
They called the green police, and the green police figured it out. Hello, this is the blue police. Yes, hi, green police. I have some evidence. We got him. No, you don't mean... Yes, Harry.
Here alerted the police over there, they managed to find them. They were staying in some kind of homeless shelter because they'd run out of money and couldn't afford to fly home. When I called them...
What? Why would they go then? Like, why would they go? And again, why leave your phone sitting at... Who leaves their phone at home? Nobody. Nobody does that. They all have their phones. Why would they...
They didn't believe it was me. They just kept screaming, and I told them I was safe at home and that I was going to buy their ticket so they could come back. I have never been more
you've already
happy
done
to see
enough.
my
You've already gave
parents
half
in
of
my
your...
entire...
Literally half of her money for 10 years. This is just ridiculous.
When I saw them walking through the arrivals gate, I just broke down into tears. I thought I'd been through hell.
This family's full of
from
idiots.
The looks of them, who'd thought they'd lost their daughter, they looked completely broken. It was a pretty
so
emotional reunion,
touching.
And not what I'd expected when I'd flown back 2 days before. They filled me in on all the details, how their house had been robbed, all their money and phones gone, and a day later how they'd received a letter saying I died. They'd even had to borrow money to fly to bring my body back. What a crazy twist of events. But at least we're all alive and finally back in the same place again. I don't plan on leaving them ever again.
So let me get this right. They left because they thought their daughter was dead because they got a note. They, in a frantic panic, they left their phones there.
Phones gone.
And everything else, they just went. They didn't even have enough money to go. They got one-way tickets to another state, another country where the green police live without questioning anything at all. The legitimacy, I mean, they didn't even try to find her on Facebook and see if she was like still posting, because I'm sure she did, right? Like surely she had social media. And then she just conveniently had bad bosses that were just absolutely awful. Sounds about right to me. It all checks out. Now, I guess the homeless people squatted in their house while they were gone, but it didn't really quite explain. It's so confusing. So she realizes the thumbs up emoji was getting suspicious and sort of weird after 10 years. Every text message I gave, they only gave me a thumbs up. I just thought my parents really loved thumbs up. That was their favorite emoji. Everyone, uses calling her. Uses texting me at intellectual. FaceTime. Oh, I get it. Yeah, like they didn't FaceTime. There was just zero communication within 10 years. Not even a letter, other than the fake one the parents got. Okay, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Police, get out or I'm calling the police. Oh, that's pretty hilarious. That's dumb. Narrator, big hairy guy, thumbnail. You sure about that? Yeah, I know, right? I know they don't plan the thumbnails, but it's pretty freaking funny. I gotta say, I didn't see that story going in that direction. I was thinking of something totally different, but okay, you know, whatever. Today's script of the day goes to Holy Water Squirt Gun. As always, guys, keep smashing that like button, especially if you love the reactions of true story animations, and especially if you like them. There's a surprise coming very soon if it's not out already. I think you guys will enjoy it. It's going to be very true and very sad. And don't forget to check out My Story Animated, because obviously they're the ones that do the stories, and they're the ones making that very entertaining content that we all know and enjoy. All right, so give them a check out. You get what I'm saying. Subscribe to become Script of the Day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.